We are
I'm
recording.
so- Go ahead.
I'm letting people in.
Okay.
Hey everyone! Welcome to another fun evening at Poe's Magic Theater Online. A few things before we begin. Hey, make sure your camera's on. All right, we want to see those smiling, happy faces, so please make sure your camera's on. Also, you will be muted unless I unmute you. So don't try to unmute yourselves. You will not be allowed to. I will ask you during the course of the show. We will need volunteers throughout the evening, so I hope you're ready to volunteer and help us out tonight. I'd like to thank everyone once again for coming this evening. So once again, make sure your camera's on so that we can see you. Turn off all your mobile devices, or at the very least, mute them or tape them up, throw them in a box, uh, put them in the other room. I hope you've also muted your children and your pets so that they also do not make any noise. Michael Blaine is here from the foggy shores of somewhere. There's a rolling mist coming in. Hopefully, there's no zombies in there. Uh, Bernard, nice to see you again. Donald, and Bernard's company. Hello, Donald. You are cheating by having your camera technically off by having something up there. Damien, how you doing? Good, good, good. Apparently, you got some product placement going on there with the wine bottle. They're not going to pay you the full price because the label's not showing. I know how that works. All right, Dan, how are you? Oh, very excited. Yep. All right, Bill, how you doing tonight? It's good to see you again, Bill. And Steven, you're here, and obviously you have a motorcycle, don't you? Yeah, I could tell. Yep. Albert, hey, how you doing? I like your bookshelf back there. You ready for YouTube? Obviously. All right. Laura, welcome back again. You're a regular here at Pose now. I think you're one of our super fans. I think. Hey, David Parr is here. Hey, David Parr, how you doing? Carlos and Carlos's friend. Hello, Carlos's friend. Hello, Carlos. What's that poster off? You must be an entertainer because you have a poster, curtains, and tapestry. Yep, that's right. After in the after show, Carlos and Pal will be doing a show for us too. So, all right, Michael Blaine, how you doing? No need to unmute yourself. You just like give it thumbs up. Oh, good, good. Cody's here. Cody, wake up. Cody. Oh, there he is. He's awake now. Okay, good. Albert, how you doing? Yep. I like the your demon picture back there. It's very adorable. And Sean, how are you? Wonderful. Nice to see you again. Tome, you've gone back to the two color scheme there. I like it. Yep, it works. All right. So a couple people are unable to use their video right now. They're saying, "Oh, unable to use video right now, but I'm excited for the show." Obviously, they're performing naked. That is the only logical explanation always. They're completely nude, not only nude, but indecently so. I mean, to another level. Being some people consider nudity indecent. It can be tastefully done. Legs crossed, for example, but no, not in this case. They are spread eagle on the couch. By the way, do we mention this is an adult show? As Paul Prater is prone to perform. A couple of other things I want to go over with you. We will need volunteers. Nudity is for sure not tasteful. Thank you for adding on to that. We will need volunteers for this eating. So once again, make sure your children and pets are muted. All right. Rope in a bathroom helps out with that. All right. If it's a thick enough door, it'll muffle the sounds. But if not, duct tape is an option. All right. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Also, make sure that I am on speaker mode. Make sure this is on speaker mode. Okay. All right. So you want to make sure it's speaker mode so that I take up the entire screen. That may not be comfortable for some of you, but that's how it has to be done. Okay. I should be on speaker mode so that when we bring on volunteers, you see, hopefully you have the latest version of Zoom. If not, well, I don't know what you've been doing this year. So thank you. It looks all right. So I think I'm done killing time because we have a full house tonight. Very exciting. Looks like we have a lot of people in here. Remember, everyone, please turn your cameras on. Let us see your smiling faces. All right, if you're decent. It mean hell. It's an adult. Paul, you have no problem with it, right?
Yeah.
There's no kids here.
No kids.
Yeah, there's no kids here. Yeah, you can just lay it all out. I'm not going to spotlight you. It's fine.
But there are websites that will pay them for that.
Yes. Yep. You're only a step away from your OnlyFans account. All right. Well, it's without further. No one needs any cards or anything like that for your show tonight, right, Paul? Nope.
No, they don't need anything. Just their attention.
All right. So I have co-spotlight with you right now. All right. So without further ado, all right, coming here from the wondrous, mysterious world of Arkansas, the United States, it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce to you someone who probably doesn't need an introduction for most of you, but some of you perhaps. And therefore, I will do the introduction part. Everyone, the mystery artist and a good friend of mine who I've known this year, as of now, officially 13 years, Mr. Paul Prater.
All right. Thank you, Vince. I appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As Vince introduced me, my name obviously is Paul Prater. You can never say that too many times. That way people are aware of it. And yes, you can probably tell by the accent, I'm from the South, as Vince mentioned, Arkansas. So that does lead to some questions that I'll answer right off the bat to get those out of the way. First, yes, I do have all of my teeth. And in fact, I will prove that to you as soon as my candle lights. There we go, a little more light here. Now I'm kind of whited out. It makes them look pearly bright. See, all of my teeth, proof. Second thing people always ask is, do I wear shoes? Of course I wear shoes. I can't really prove that tonight because I'm at home, so I'm not actually wearing shoes. And the third and final question, have I ever met Bill Clinton? Yes, multiple times. And in fact, here's one of the advantages of the wonders of the internet. There's me at 13 years old shaking hands with Bill Clinton. So what that means is that, yes, I am a part of the Illuminati, and my goal is to take over the world one great magic show at a time. In fact, we've gone ahead and come up with our own slogan. It's make magic great again. So that's what I'm working on. Now, with that out of the way, I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. I'm a mind reader. That means I know what you're thinking. And it's kind of hard to read minds through the internet, but I'm going to do my best to reach out through the ether and pick up on what everyone here is thinking. In fact, I can tell that 50 93.6% of you think that I'm totally full of crap. And you know what? You might be right. Aside from doing this, I'm also an attorney, so I lie to people for a living. I'll let you figure out which career we're talking about there. But there's a smaller percentage of you who are afraid that perhaps I truly can read your mind through the internet. You're worried that I'll reveal your deepest, darkest secrets. And you know, once it's on the internet, it's there forever. But I do have PayPal, Cash App, Coffee, all kinds of different methods in which I can be paid off, tipped. And for a small fee, I will, of course, keep your secrets quiet. Now, there are a smaller percentage of you that I'm picking up on who are wondering if I'm single. Well, COVID's been tough times for all of us. And for the right price, I certainly can be. Just don't tell my girlfriend. And there's an even smaller percentage of you, just a few of you, who are wondering if I'm gay. Well, COVID's been tough times for all of us, and for the right price, I can be. So with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Now, what I want to do is warm up, so to speak. And to warm up, I need to do some calisthenics. Now, you guys don't want to see me get up and start stretching because I'm not wearing pants either. And that's not the kind of show you're paying for. Now, later, again, we can provide for that if that's what you want. But no, what I'm talking about are mental calisthenics. I want to warm up my brain a little bit. And this is tough to do over the internet, so consider it just my warm up. Now, before we began tonight, I took an envelope. You can see it's sealed up there, and I made a prediction that I wrote down. And Vince, this is where I need to find my first person who's going to assist tonight, whoever that is. If you can get somebody unmuted so that they can help me out, please.
Everyone, raise your hand if you would like to volunteer. Extra credit if you're not a magician. Yay, Laura is volunteering for us.
All right, Laura. Where are you from, Laura?
Peoria, Illinois.
Peoria, Illinois. I have never actually been there, but now that we've met through the internet, we're friends, right?
Sure.
Okay, sure. That was I'm not really sure. So if I wanted to visit Peoria, I've got a place to crash, right?
Sure, if you want to sleep with a dog and a cat.
No, I'm not allergic to either. I think I can handle that. It's cheaper than a hotel. All right. So what I want to do, Laura, is have you think about somebody who's important to you. Just don't say out loud who it is, but just think about the first person that pops into your head that's important to you. And I want you to think about their first name and their last name. So think about their initials, their first initial and their last initial. And what I attempted to do before we even started was pick up on who might be here and what they might be thinking of. So Laura, tell everybody what those initials are, please.
RH.
RH. Now, RH, I want you to think about who this person is to you. Think about whether they're a blood relative, who they are exactly. Just really concentrate on who RH is to you, okay? And as I'm picking up on that, I feel like it's a blood relative. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
It is a blood relative, and I feel like it's probably a parent. Is that correct as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, we're making a connection. So I got a strong feeling about this. And I want to show you in my sealed envelope, I made my prediction before we even started. I'm going to hold that up there. Vince, can you highlight me real quick? There we go. I want to make sure that's readable. There we go. It says the initials you are thinking of are RH. So thank you very much. I appreciate your assistance. And I think we are off now to a good start. So the next time that you talk to your parents, tell them you got your mind read over the internet. So I'm happy that we're getting started off on that good calisthenics exercise. So what I want to work on is our show proper. And I want to tell you a little bit about our themes. So one of the things that's an eternal question that man has always struggled with is what happens after death? Where do we go? Is there life after death? Now, there's a saying that a man dies two deaths. The first is when he passes physically from this world, and the second is when everyone who knows him has died. Then he is truly, completely, irrevocably dead. But let's think about this a different way. If names are kept alive, then perhaps a person is kept alive as well. I want you to think about Abraham Lincoln and think about, you know him, of course. Well, It's kind of a trick question, I suppose. No one really knows Abraham Lincoln, but you know who he is because we've kept his name alive. You probably know what he did before he was president. He was a lawyer. You probably know his wife's name, Mary Todd Lincoln. And when I say Abraham Lincoln, you probably get this image of a man in a black suit, very tall, with a top hat and a beard. And it's because that's the images that you've always seen of Abraham Lincoln. And so by keeping that name alive, in a way, we've kept him alive. And that's why men build things like mausoleums and tombs and crypts. It's a way to say, I'm here, or I was here. Don't forget about me. So tonight we're going to tell some of those stories, and we're going to try to keep these names alive in a manner of speaking. So you might think of tonight as a type of seance, or maybe not if you don't like that kind of thing. But another thing that I want to talk about, we're going to discuss tonight, is fate and free will. What controls in life? Is there fate? Is there free will? Are there both? But what is the primary thing that drives men? Now, Vince, at this point, I'd like it if you could have somebody else help me out, please. So if you can get another person, that would be great.
All right, everyone, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're sure. All right, there we go. Patrick Woolery.
Great, Patrick.
Unmute thyself.
That is still Laura that I see, at least.
I see me.
Oh, I see you now, Patrick. Hey, how are you?
I guess I just had to talk.
Where are you from, Patrick?
Life is good. Fairbanks, Alaska.
Oh, Fairbanks, Alaska. That's a long ways from Arkansas. I think that's probably a little too cold for me, but I might visit Fairbanks, and if so, I'll look you up.
Please do. Please do.
All right. So, Patrick, what do you think controls in life, primarily fate or free will?
That's a really hard question to answer because some days I think one, some days I think the other. I think they both have a lot of validity. I could actually talk about this for half an hour and I'm not going to, but I think that what Richard Webster says about fate being like a fan, that you have paths you go down by choice, but once you go down that path, you don't have a lot of choice as to what you're going to meet up with, is probably closest to what I believe.
So then that's a little bit of both, right? A little bit of fate, a little bit of free will.
Yeah.
We're going to work with this idea of fate and free will. I will assume, but maybe it's an incorrect assumption. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming you came to watch this of your own free will. You didn't have anyone drag you in to say, hey, watch this, right?
Well, the guy with the gun is off screen here, but I'll tell you that it was free will.
All right. So free will at least controlled tonight. Now, I want to show you this. What I have is a little piece of cloth, basically. And inside here, there are 4 king tarot cards. There's a king tarot card of each of the 4 suits. So up here, you have the sword. Here you have the club, sometimes known as the staff, the stave, or the wand. Down here, we have the coin. And here we have the cup. Now, what I would like you to do is extend a finger, please. Thank you for using that one. That's a good indication of how the show's going often. So if you could imagine that you were here with me, would you put your finger over these top 2 or these bottom 2? Top 2 or bottom 2? Which one would you pick?
Top 2.
The top 2. So that's the sword and the club. Any particular reason why you chose that?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
Significant reason. One of my pastimes is knife making, and so the swords draw me.
Interesting. Interesting. Now, there's also this psychological perspective to that says that perhaps we hide the things that we don't want to see. Think about what little kids do. When they don't want you to see them, they cover their eyes, right? And they think that if you can't see, or if they can't see you, then you can't see them. So what we did was fate. Your decision was the elimination of 2 items. By covering those 2, we've gotten rid of them. But now I want to give you a free will choice because we're down to our coin or our cup. Which one of those appeals to you more, the coin or the cup? Just free choice.
The cup.
The cup. Now, here's the crazy thing. I could tell you that I knew you would be here tonight. And would you believe that?
Well, I think that you could have asked Vince if I'd purchased a ticket.
That's true. I could have. And had I asked Vince if you had purchased a ticket and I did some research on you, I could have known that perhaps the sword would have been your choice, right?
Yeah, I think you could have found that.
But that would have been too easy. So you went with the cup. Do you think I could have known you would have picked the cup?
I think we're about to find out. but I'm going to
Yeah,
say it's unlikely.
inside our packet here, we've got our 4 tarot cards that I mentioned. And only one of those is face up. And as you can probably see, it's the King of Cups. That's our only one that's face up. Now, I knew that you might be somewhat skeptical of that. So it's the only one with a different colored back. The other 3, as you can see, are blue. And the thing is, Patrick, you really didn't have a choice. It wasn't free will because the rest are all blank. Thank you very much for your assistance. I appreciate it. Thank you. So now we've kind of played with this idea of fate and free will, and we're going to talk about some darker themes as the evening goes on. Since we're doing that, I think maybe we ought to do something a little bit light, have some levity to begin early on. So I want to share a story with everyone. It's a story about true love, a story about passion, a story about trust and faith, and it ends in the death of 1,198 people. It's a very heartwarming tale. It's my kind of love story. And it has to do with this man. There we go. I was getting it to where we don't have too much reflection there. I'll place it there so you can take a look at him. His name was David Dow. And people said that David was a lucky man, and perhaps he was. But I want to tell you a bit about his story. David had a relatively normal upbringing. He grew up in England. When he was in school, he wanted to play the trumpet, and he used to practice out on the front steps of his apartment building, blaring away on that trumpet, while the little girl Mary across the street would look at him with adoring glances, much to the consternation of the neighbors. The trumpet part, not the loving glances. They were okay with that. And David knew from a young age that Mary was probably interested in him. But he had another love, and that love was the sea. He had this desire to voyage, to travel, to see the world. And so at 17, he joined the Royal Navy. Now, he did keep in touch with Mary. During those times at sea, they would write notes back and forth. And before long, those notes, that friendship grew into something more, and David realized that he truly loved Mary as well. Now, while he loved being a sailor, he realized that he wanted to marry Mary, and so he did. After he finished his time at sea, he took a job back in England where he could be close to her. But after a year of working, he realized that he was still missing that desire to travel. It was pulling at him, that desire to be back out at sea. So like a good husband, he talked to his wife and explained to her how he felt, and they came up with a compromise. As long as he worked on cruise ships or cargo ships, well, then it wouldn't matter. He would be home, some with Mary, but then he could still travel. And that's what they did. And they kept their love alive during that time, still with notes. Before David would leave, he would hide notes around the house that Mary would find. And when David was at sea, she would hide notes in his luggage that he would find. And one of those times when he was on a voyage, he stuck his foot in his boot and found one of those notes. Now, that wasn't so unusual, but the contents of the note itself was quite unusual. And I want to share that with you. The note said, "My dearest, I've missed you so much while you've been gone. I don't know how else to tell you this, but I have an ability to see the future. Not clearly, but an intuition, so to speak. I know you have your box with you." Now, the box she was referring to was this little box. It has a little anchor on it, simple wooden box, and sailors didn't have a lot of room for a lot of personal possessions. So David would take this little box and a few items with him, items that Mary knew that he would have. So the letter goes on to say, "I know you have your box with you. Please remove the items." And I'll share those items with you. The first thing he always carried in his box was a British penny. It's from 1888. David's grandfather gave it to him and told him that it had been found in the pocket of one of the Jack the Ripper victims. Now, David didn't believe that, primarily because the Ripper victims were all women and they didn't have pockets in their dresses. That and because his grandfather also loved to spin yarns that were mostly lies. But it was fun to have that with him and tell those stories on board a dark ship late at night on the sea. It was fun to scare other sailors with. The next thing he always had with him was his whistle. He worked as a boatswain on the ship, and part of his job was to watch for any danger. And if he saw any danger, he could blow his whistle and men would come running. And the final thing, in the days when David was a sailor, there weren't things like the internet, cell phones, televisions, or other forms of entertainment like that. You had to stay entertained somehow. So he always had his dice so that the men could play on board the ship. Now, the letter went on to say, pretend I am there. So, Vince, I need another person to volunteer, please.
Raise your hand if you want to volunteer. Bernard and friend. We're going to emphasize Bernard's friend.
Yeah, that's my bride, Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello, Bernard and Elizabeth. All right, Bernard. So we're going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to play the role of David, and you're going to play the role of my lovely wife, Mary. Does that work for you?
How about if my wife plays Mary?
Okay, great.
Okay.
Elizabeth, you can be Mary. How does that work? That's better, right? All right. So the note went on to say, pretend I am there. So we're pretending that you're here with me, okay? And now you're going to select one of those three items, the coin, the whistle, or the dice. Which one appeals to you the most? Which would you like to select first, Elizabeth?
The whistle, please.
The whistle. Very good. So we'll take the whistle first. It goes there. Now, if you were here with me, would you pick up the dice or the coin?
The coin.
You would pick up the coin. So the dice go to me. Do you want to change your mind with that, or are you good with these decisions?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Now, her note went on to say, take out the picture. Now, in his other boot, he had found a picture of Mary that she had included. I'm sure you guys can see the resemblance. We look very much alike. I think it's mainly the nose there. But she had made a prediction on there. And is that readable? Can you full size me, Vince? It says, I have the dice, which I do. You have the coin, which is what you selected, and the whistle is in the box. Love, Mary. The prediction occurred on that ship just like it did right here tonight. Thank you, Elizabeth, for your help. I appreciate it. So that's how Mary proved to David that maybe she did have some type of intuition. But I still haven't told you the rest of the story. I have to tell you about the deaths of the 1,198 people. You see, this man that I've been telling you his story, and this picture I've been showing you, David Dow, is an actual person. He's a real person. You can look him up on the internet. I prefer you do that after my show. Stay focused here if that's all right. But he worked for a cruise line known as the Cunard Line. And perhaps some of you have heard of that. It had a very infamous ship known as the Lusitania. And he was the captain of the Lusitania. Now, he was about to go on a voyage, just like any other voyage he had done hundreds of times before. And Mary came to David and said, don't go on this trip. He said, well, I have to go on the trip. This is my job. And she said, do you remember all of those years ago when we played that little game and I proved to you that I had an intuition about what would happen? She told him, I have an intuition that something very bad is going to happen tonight. Please don't go. So David sent a letter in, said that he had a severe illness and wouldn't be able to take a trip. They got another captain to take over the Lusitania for this particular trip, where it was going from England to New York. It left port and didn't make it too far out of English waters before a German U-boat sent 2 torpedoes into the side of the Lusitania, taking it down to the bottom of the ocean with 1,198 people on board. But David Dow was not one of those people. He lived because his wife asked him not to go. And people say the moral of the story is that he was a lucky man. But I don't think that's the true moral of the story. I think the real moral of the story is that husbands should always listen to their wives. Thank you guys very much. Now we're going to move on. And one of the things that I truly have missed with COVID is the ability to travel and do shows in different places. And I've been lucky enough that I've gotten to perform literally all over the world. But one of my favorite places that I got to perform, or at least one of my favorite stories, was in Baltimore. And this was thanks to Vince. I was able to perform at midnight at Poe's gravesite. That's one of those things I'll kind of hang on to forever. And when I travel, I also like to be able to pick up mementos and keepsakes from the place that I'm in, things that matter to that location. And one of the things that I wanted to bring home were crab cakes, but you can't really fly with those. So I got the next best thing, crab chips. Again, thanks to Vince for sending them to me. But I picked something else up. I went to the Edgar Allan Poe house when I was there, and they had little keepsakes and things that you could buy. And I picked up some cards. They were kind of like playing cards, except they just had images from Poe's works. Now I took some of those and blew them up so they're a little bit bigger so that you guys could actually see them. This is the front. It's pretty simple. It's just the Poe Museum with pictures of Edgar Allan Poe, of course. The backs are kind of like flashcards. They're things that maybe you could use to teach children. I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of these were, but I'll show you the backs, and you guys at home can probably guess at what some of these stories are. They're some of his most popular works. You have this one, which is, of course, The Telltale Heart. That one's pretty obvious. Not all of them are quite as obvious. You have this one, which is a poem about a young woman, which you probably know as Annabel Lee. We have this one, which of course everyone knows, The Raven. This one's a little more obscure from the picture itself, but it's particularly relevant during COVID. It's The Mask of the Red Death. And then finally, I recently did a run of shows in Utah, and one of the answers I got to this one was Grumpy Cat. That is not an Edgar Allan Poe story. That is, in fact, an internet meme. This one is The Black Cat. So those are our 5 images that we have. So 5 cards with 5 images. Now I'm going to mix these up, place them in this way so that I can't see which is which, and no one knows which is which. We're going to work with someone's intuition. As I'm mixing them, Vince, now would be a good time to get somebody up who wants to volunteer to help out, please.
All right. Raise your hands, please. All right. Friend of Damien.
Friend of Damien. That works. All right. Damien, who's there with you? Who do we have?
This is Christian. This is the missus.
Hey, Christian. Nice to meet you virtually as well. Thank you for helping out. So we're going to work with these 5 images here. Now, have you ever thought that perhaps you were psychic?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, great. Have you ever tried to test your psychic abilities?
Not really.
Well, we're going to try to test them a little bit. Now, this is more about intuition more than anything else. So sometimes psychic abilities can be viewed as intuition. So there's no right or wrong here. This is all going with your gut. Now, we have these 5 images, and maybe you remember what all 5 of them are. Maybe you don't. It doesn't matter, because once you hear or see something, it's up here in the subconscious. So it's there forever regardless. So you're all good. And what I want to do in just a moment is send one of those images into your brain. One of the other things I have with me is a book of Edgar Allan Poe's works. This is the complete works of Poe, and a fun little bookmark that I also got at the Poe Museum. I have bookmarked one of those 5 stories right here. All right. So we're going to see if I can shoot over the internet one of those images into your brain that matches this story that's bookmarked. So just look at me. I'm going to try to do that in 3, 2, 1. And I think I've sent it out to you. All right. That sounds weird. Now I'm going to try something else. We're going to use an intermediary device that maybe, again, using intuition can help. I've never tried this on the internet. This might be a little weird. And it might not work, but we'll see what we can do. I'm going to use a pendulum. Have you ever worked with pendulums before?
Nope.
All right, I'll explain just briefly how they work. You just ask it a question, and it will go left and right for no, and this way up and down for yes, kind of like shaking your head no for no, and yes for yes. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, very good. So just to give it an example, I'm not going to consciously move it, but I'm going to ask it a question. I'm going to ask, am I a woman? And you can probably see it's going left and right like no. If it had gone the other way, we all would have been surprised tonight, but it's working. Now, this particular pendulum is powerful. It's made out of quartz crystal that I dug up myself from Hot Springs, Arkansas, where they have a lot of quartz. And then I charged it myself by dancing around it naked under a full moon. I can't even say that with a straight face. I'm kidding. I just needed to explain to the cops what was going on. So made up story. Anyway, we're going to work with this pendulum in just a moment. Now, before we do, are you okay with where the cards are laid out, or do you want me to mix them around some more?
Mix them around some more.
Okay. So that way we've got a totally random, I mixed them in my hand, mixed them on the table. You feeling pretty good about where they are now?
Yes.
Okay. That's a pretty randomized order. Now I shot one of those images into your brain. I want you to focus on one of these cards over the internet, of course, and think of which one that you think might be the correct one. Now don't say anything out loud, but just focus on it. And I'm going to use the pendulum over it. And what I want you to do is over the internet, try to get that pendulum to move one way or the other, okay?
Okay.
Now this sounds weird. We're going to try it. Now I'm getting a no. Was this the one you were thinking of? It's not, is it?
No.
So you've actually managed to move the pendulum. We've eliminated one properly. This is interesting. I'm going to go down here. I'm getting a no. Is this the one you were thinking of?
Yes.
It was. Okay. Well, trying to do stuff over the internet doesn't always work. Just for the sake of that's fine. Just no problem. Just for the sake of science. See if you can make this one move to a no. And I hope you can see I'm staying very still, as still as I possibly can. And we've got a no. Well, I think we're playing along well enough to know that something's working here. But this is the one you thought was the correct one, right?
Mhm.
Now, I'll tell you the story that I picked out. I want to read just a very short part of it for you, okay? And you tell me what you think this story is. See how well we know your Poe. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of
Annabelle Lee.
And the one you thought was the correct one is indeed Annabelle Lee. So good job. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vince, for highlighting. I appreciate that. And thank you for putting me somewhere where I can collect all this fun stuff. I appreciate you, Vince. All right. We're going to keep moving forward. First time I've ever tried that over the internet. We're going to talk about something a little bit darker now at this point. In the medieval period, think about this idea of fate and free will and how much people really had any real choice of fate versus free will. Now, in the medieval period, you could have prepared as well as you could have. You could have raised your crops, built your house, gone to church every Sunday as the Catholic Church required, could have done your prayers, and it wouldn't have mattered. There could have been foreign armies that would have conquered. There could have been famine that happened. There could have been any number of things that could have occurred that really meant all of your preparation, all of your free will choices were for naught. So that's part of how the church had some control. Since you had very little, everything was in the hands of God. And I want to play a game with the idea of fate and free will, a game that would have been played in the medieval period. Obviously, most of the people then couldn't read, so graphic images were often how things were taught. So Vince, I need somebody who likes to play games. If you can select that person, I'm going to grab a drink real quick. My throat's a little dry.
All right. Raise your hand. All right, Cody.
All right, Cody, thank you for helping out. Cody, do you like playing games?
I play many games.
All right. Well, good. Cody, I'm glad you're going to help out. This is a game that you probably never played, though, possibly. We have a game board that's a little interesting. This is our game board. One side says Kashi, one side says bless you. So we're going to play a game that involves curses and blessings. So what we're trying to do essentially is see if those choices that you could make in life, like you're making now, could lead you to good outcomes, to blessings, or whether all of your choices, no matter how well intentioned, still leads you to nothing more than curses and ruin. So are you in on the game now?
Yes.
All right, good. I'm glad you still want to play it with that all being said. So I'm going to mix these cards. I wish you could be here with me or at least have like smell-o-vision or touch-o-vision. They have a very interesting texture to them. They're very thick cards. They feel like perhaps they're leather or even skin. Some people would say perhaps human skin. But the reason I say smell-o-vision is because they actually smell pretty good. I said that one time to a girl on stage and she licked one of my cards. I'm glad that nowadays in the day of COVID, that can't happen. But I'm going to mix these up. So I feel like they're fairly well mixed. I want you to have as much control as you can over the internet. I know it's very different doing that when you can't be here. But now that they're fairly well mixed, we're still going to make random choices. I'm going to deal out a hand for me and a hand for you. And Vince, if you don't mind, can you full screen me again, just so that I can make sure everything's in frame? Oh, very good. Okay, everything looks pretty good. I want everyone to be able to see everything. So, Cody, I want you to make decisions. Do you want me to deal these like poker, where one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here, or just 6 here, 1 in the middle? So how do you want to do it? Poker style, or just deal them all out in a row?
6 and 6.
Okay, very good. Then we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, whoops, let me put it on top of the cloth. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have 1 in the middle. So based on what you would have said, that could have changed the order of the cards completely. So mixing them still only has so much control, because the way they're laid out means that now they're in a totally different order. Now this card is going to be essentially our wild card. Would you like me to change the position of this card, trade it out for any other card, or just leave it how it is?
My third card.
Well, I don't even know which hand is yours yet. So let's back up a little bit. You get that choice too. Do you want this hand or this hand? You can make that choice as well.
I'll take the one closest to me.
Okay, so this is your hand. So third card, this one?
Yes.
So we'll trade that out. Okay, good. So now you've totally controlled the deck. You've controlled how it was laid out. You've controlled what cards are where. So now we're going to start our little game. Again, keeping total control up to you. Now, this is truly as free as you can possibly get. Do you want to start with your hand or my hand?
Your hand.
My hand. So what we're going to do to play our game is eliminate cards one at a time. With each elimination, we are eliminating a curse. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So just tell me when you want me to stop as I'm touching these, so that way it's easy to see.
That one.
This one? Okay, very good. This is the first curse or blessing that we're eliminating. This is the curse of grief and pain. So this is a woman who is mourning what looks to be her dead baby. You can see on the ground there. But there's something that could be a cross, or perhaps it's a dagger by her feet. So maybe she's actually murdered her baby. It could be worse than we think. But again, by turning that over, we've eliminated this curse. So by eliminating it, I'm going to place it face up where it says bless ye, nullifying it. Now we have your hands. Just tell me which one you want me to stop at.
Here.
This one or this one?
The third.
This one. Okay, very good. Oh, this is the curse of madness. Now, in the medieval period, they didn't understand insanity, and so there's a little demon on that person's back. They thought that if you were crazy, that it had to have been demonic possession. Now, I'm glad you got rid of this one, though it is in your hand. This isn't one that I would want you to have or me, because people already think I'm crazy because this is what I do for work. But by turning it over, we've eliminated it. Now, same thing back to my hand. Just tell me when to stop.
Here.
This one? Or the end?
The one you're on now.
Okay, very good. Just want to make sure we're clear. Oh, man. This is a curse that I would have been kind of okay with. This is the curse of dread and shame. It's Adam and Eve being cast out of the Garden of Eden. Now, I don't really have any shame. Do you have any, Cody?
Barely.
Yeah, barely. So this would not be that bad of a curse, but you've eliminated it. So that means we have worse curses awaiting us. Again, just tell me when you want me to stop.
Here.
This one, very good. Now this one is kind of like the Joker card, like a Trump card. Notice it doesn't say curse you, not Trump like the president, but more like a Joker card. Also not like the ex-president, but like Joker out of a deck of cards. Notice that this is the death card. The reason why it doesn't say curse ye and it's a little different than like a Joker or a wild card is because this is the one curse we all have. No one's escaping death. We're all going to die eventually. But because of your choices, Cody, no one dies tonight. So thank you for making that choice. Now, I'm going to keep going down mine. Tell me when you want me to. This one, very good. And this card, oh, I'm so glad you eliminated this one. This is the curse of beggary. This is a man with a rope around his neck who's being flailed, undoubtedly being led to the gallows to be hung because he was a beggar. And beggars were a drain on society. And again, this is what I do for a living. This is always a real risk. Thank you for saving me from that fate, Cody. I will continue on. I've got your 4 here. Just tell me when you want me to stop.
Here.
This one, very good. Okay, this one's a little unusual. It looks like a monkey with a corkscrew penis smoking a pipe, but that is in fact a werewolf. And we've eliminated the curse of lycanthropy. I'm already hot and hairy enough, so thank you for getting rid of that one. Now we're down to just a few left. Which one do you want me to get rid of? This one. Very good. This is the curse of strife and warfare. These are people in battle. Nowadays, war is almost done like a video game. You can use a joystick and push a button and drop a bomb. But in the medieval period, you had to look someone in the eye before you stabbed them. But since we've eliminated strife and warfare, this means no fighting tonight, spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends. We've eliminated that, so no fighting. All right, Cody.
Here.
This middle one? Okay, very good. This is really the one I hope that would be the very last one. This is the curse of having your pig taken. Do you have a pig?
I lack pigs.
Yeah, me too. So if my pig was taken, that would be a very innocuous curse. In the medieval period, it might have been bad, but for us, that would have been a good one. Well, this is where we are now. You have 2 cards, I have 2 cards. If you could touch one of these 2 cards, would you touch this one or this one?
I would touch the first one you touched.
This one right here. Okay, so if you had your hand down, do you want to keep that card or eliminate that card?
I will keep it.
Keep it. Which one? So we're going to eliminate this one first. Oh, this is the curse of the devil. So, this curse, some people think it's horrible. Some people think it's not so bad. People often think this is how I do the things that I do, but I assure you the devil has nothing to do with it anymore. He was not very consistent or reliable, but we've eliminated the devil. Now, which of these 2 do you want me to keep?
Let's keep your right.
This is my right. This is the one you want to keep?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So now we're eliminating, terrible one. Good choice in getting rid of that. That is basically torture. That is a man being sawn in half from the ass to the head. That's pretty horrific. I'm glad you got rid of that one. So now here's the part of the game I haven't explained to you, Cody. You've got a card, I've got a card, and we got a wild card. Now we haven't seen any blessings yet, so there could possibly be one in play, or maybe this is a game you can never win no matter what. But I'm going to give you the option too. Do you want to take the wild card? Do you want to take my card, or do you want to keep everything as it is?
Let's keep things as it is.
As it is. Very good. So part of our game too, I don't ever like revealing everything until the end. You see, we share a fate. We have a common fate. Once we enter this game, we play it together. We share a card. If I told you too much about the game, then perhaps you would have changed your mind. But this is the very same card that you elected to put there in the beginning. Remember, you changed everything and put that card there. Had you not done that, your curse would have been sickness and plague. That's a plague doctor. They would wear those beak masks because they thought bad smells created sickness. They would stuff them full of herbs and flowers, and it would smell wonderful when they died of the plague. Incidentally, I made one of those. In fact, I'll even share it with everyone. Never mind, I don't want to grab that and pull everything down from that thing. But I made one of those and wanted to wear it to the grocery store, and my girlfriend said no. So if we would have stuck with this one, this would have been truly the worst. This is ruin. This is a tower being struck by lightning that's on fire that people are falling from. This is the worst of all of the cards. But because of your choices, the one thing that we share are blessings, all based on your choices and your control. You did a good job. Thank you very much, Cody. I appreciate you. Thank you, Vince, for handling the highlighting. Now, before we move on to our final thing, I want to share something with you. I've told you already that I'm an attorney, and what that means is that I often need proof of things. I'm a skeptic, I readily admit. I'm sure a lot of the people on the call tonight or on the video tonight are skeptics as well. And one of the things I love to do is collect odd and unusual things. Now, if you collect odd and unusual things, then the word gets out that you collect odd and unusual things. And then before long, they start coming to you. Now, aside from doing this, I also do ghost tours and shows here in Little Rock. And I've got an area of town that I perform in that has some places that are reputed to be quite haunted. And a lot of those items have come to me, and that's what I want to share with you guys. The first thing I have comes from a place that's now a bar called Four Quarter. It's one of my favorite bars. It's also where I've done seances frequently. And the history behind it is that it was originally a brothel called Miss Birdie's. And in Miss Birdie's, a prostitute was murdered by having her throat cut and she was thrown off the upper floor. And people have seen her ghost consistently since the 1800s. Now, when they did renovations for the place, they found this, which is a tintype, a small tintype of a woman. No one knows for sure who that is. I even went to the historical council that I work with and asked, and no one's really sure, but perhaps that could have been one of those prostitutes. I like to at least imagine so. So we're going to work with that. The next thing I have also came out of that same place. It's a little lacy handkerchief. Now, again, this is where I wish we had some kind of like where you could actually experience this. It smells like grandmother's house, kind of like perfume and an old closet, but maybe you don't want that on your face if it actually was a brothel. I've not run a UV light on it, nor will I. But that's our second item. Now, this area of town where I perform also originally was a railroad town. So there were a lot of railroad men who came in and out. And one of the things they found in an old hotel was a silver dollar. Now, these are, of course, not that unusual. You can find them today and still buy them. But what is unusual about this one is it was carved. This is called a hobo coin. And that's an image of Baphomet on the back. Some people associate that with Satanism or evil, and I don't think it is. It goes back much, much longer than our ideas of modern Satanism. It goes back to the time of the Cathars. And I find it interesting that a hobo would actually know that image and carve it on a coin. So to me, that's a very special item. The next thing that came out of the same place is just this little leather book. A lot of the writings in here from 1936 is just where people would write little notes, and it says memorandum, but there are a few funny things. So maybe in a way we can be connected with these people. There's a note in here that says, Geneva, if you love me like I love you, there will be a wedding in a week or two, believe it or not, OC. I don't know who OC is, but he wrote his proposal in this little book, and I find that just incredible. And then on the other side, he apparently was a poet too, because it says, milk that cow, feed that calf, squeeze your honey till she laughs. Never said he was a good poet. So we're going to use this little book, something that's a direct memento of the past. And then finally, catty corner from that bar, there's a building that used to be a funeral home. It was a funeral home for more than 100 years, and now it's a law firm. The attorneys who own it are friends of mine. And down in the basement, it used to be the mortuary. They filled in the hole that was the grate where the fluids would drain out. And when they did, they found a human tooth. I had somebody on the tour who was a dentist one time who told me specifically that's a female third molar. So we have that as well. So I want to start by just working with these items. Now, if the dead are present with us, or if we can bring them present with us, then surely they can see what's happening. They can see what's going on. So I want somebody, Vince, to help out using these 5 items. So if you can get somebody, please, who would like to assist.
All right, everyone, volunteer time. You know the routine. Raise your hand. All right, we got Stephanie.
All right, Stephanie, very good. Now, Stephanie, if you were here with me, speak up so it'll switch for me, please.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hey, now it's switched over to you. Very good. Stephanie, thank you again for attending again, too. I appreciate you. You've helped out on every show I've done, and I appreciate that. If you were here to touch one of those items, which would you touch first? The photo, the handkerchief, the coin, the book, or the tooth?
Probably the book.
The book. And then if you touched the second item after that, what would it be? The book and the
photo.
The book and the photo. Now I want to give you a choice between those two. Which one would you like to get rid of now?
The photo.
The photo. Very good. I'll touch the handkerchief and the coin. Which one of those two would you like to get rid of?
The handkerchief.
All right, we'll get rid of the handkerchief. Now we're down to 3 items. If you could touch 2 of those, which 2 would you touch at this point?
Try not to touch the tooth, so I have the book and the coin.
Okay, well, you've already made a decision, then you wouldn't touch the tooth. So let's go ahead and not have that as an option at all. And we'll just place that right there. So no one's touching that, aside from me, of course, and I'm okay with that. And we're going to come back to that in just a moment. But again, if the dead are present, or if we can bring them in this room with us, then surely they can see that decision that's been made, and they can see that one item. I want to move on to a few other items I want to share with you. All that we're doing is setting up various experiments to test if we can actually have some kind of communication. Now, this is an interesting item. I've got a friend who lives in Hot Springs, Arkansas, who has an antique store. And when he finds unusual antiques that he doesn't keep for himself, he will buy them and give them to me. He gave me a box covered in cobra skin, which is awesome, which I would love to carry around for props, but I don't want to ruin it. And he also gave me this. Now, you can notice the printing. It looks like a circus big top. And inside, it's a set of unusual tarot cards. Hold this so you can see some of these images. They have skulls and clown faces on them. Some of them are like that. It's probably upside down. They're all in different orders in here, just been mixed up by people over the course of shows. But I have a feeling I know the origin of these cards. I believe that these cards likely were used by fortune tellers in circuses. In the early 1900s, it wasn't unusual for a circus to go from town to town. And as they did, they would always have freaks and oddities and fortune tellers. So I think that's probably the origin of these things. Now, Stephanie, we still have you on. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. The next thing we're going to use with these cards is this. Now, this is something mediums would have used. This is known as spirit slates. It's pretty simple. They're chalkboards like slates like kids would have used in school, but kind of the only advancement in this is that they're hinged. Now, the idea is that you could close your slates, and if the spirits were actually present, then they could leave you some kind of a message. Hinging them means you wouldn't lose a slate, but it also means that you can lock everything closed. So I'm going to start just moving through these, and just tell me when you would like me to stop at any random point.
Stop.
Very good. So you want to use this top card, or you want me to cut deeper, or stay where we are? Or
You can stay where you are. Use the top
okay.
card.
I just wanted to make it as random as we could. So as I mentioned, the advantage of this, not only will you not lose it, but as you can see, you can lock it. So now we have our second experiment in place. Perhaps that choice of where we stopped was totally random, or perhaps it was controlled by spirits. We're going to test that one as well. And then I have one final thing I would like to share with everyone for our test. It's this. This is a block of wood, or so it would appear. Well, it is wood, but it has a special history. Now, in Arkansas, about 20 years ago now, they moved the state police headquarters. And when they did that, they moved to a different location and needed to get rid of some things. And our state police had control of all three of the electric chairs, which by that point were no longer used for execution. They were simply in storage. One of those electric chairs went to a state museum, and the other two went up for auction. Now, I mentioned I have that friend in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and we made a deal ahead of time that each of us would put a bid on a different electric chair so that we could each have the chance of winning, because we figured we would be the two winners. I was happy he agreed to that because he has more money than me, but then he turned out to be a liar. He won them both. But he was kind of clever. He took one of them and cut it into pieces and sold the pieces with little frame certificates saying how this was actually used to execute prisoners in Arkansas. And we don't know whether that one was actually used to execute anyone, but it's a cool story. And he sold all of these pieces and paid for both of the chairs that way. But he gave me a piece. So perhaps this was actually used to execute some poor fool in Arkansas. I don't know. But what we're going to do is use this as well. So we have all of our items laid out. And at this point, I want to see if we can make some spirit communication. I'll use my wine glass here. And if there are any spirits here at this point, I would ask them to communicate with us, to give us some kind of a sign. If the spirits are here, if they could do anything at all.
Oh.
I think we have a first indication. But if there's anything else that the spirits could do, if they could show us anything else, if they could make a candle flicker or even go out, if they could cause a breeze even at someone's home, they don't have to be here with me only. If the spirits are anywhere or could give anybody a sign, that's what I'm asking for. Spirits, if you're here, show us something else. I appreciate you moving that wood, but is there anything else you can do? Anything else you can show us? Spirits, we're not here to taunt you. We're not here to mock you, or to give you grief in the afterlife. We just want some kind of proof, some kind of evidence that there is communication from beyond. Spirits, are there anything else? Is there anything else you can show us? Any other signs? Spirits, our time is running low. This will be my last request. If you can touch somebody, I think at this point we've had signs. Now, I mentioned earlier that perhaps if the spirits were here, they could have left us a message. Perhaps they could have influenced choices. Now, earlier, Cody and I played a game where blessings were what we were left with, and the image was of the sun. That's the most positive of all tarot cards, is the sun. And perhaps if we could have been led to that, we could have known that the spirits meant us no harm. Let's get our single tarot card out. And it is
The sun.
sun.
Oh, good.
Oh, but they have left us something else. It says, I see the tooth. At this point, if there are any other spirits here in my home or any other, we would ask you to leave us in peace at this time. Thank you, everyone, and good night. Thank you, Vince.
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you, Paul. Oh, that last part gave me chills. That was fantastic. Oh boy, thank you everyone for volunteering for CD.
Yes.
Everyone, another round of applause for Paul Prater.
Thank you.
Experience his Requiem this evening. Thank you so much for coming. And now, of course, comes one of the highlights of the evening, the Q&A session. Before that, a little bit of news. Like next week is February. Starts Black History Month. Every show will be hosted by Mr. Randy Shine, very good friend of mine. Very excited to have him back again. He'll be here every Saturday in February, concluding with a huge event on the last day of the month, last Saturday of the month, which will have 4 wonderful performers performing on the same day. So check it out at posemagic.com. Also, please check out the, there's some links in the chat room where you can buy Paul a beer, and you can support Pose Magic as well. So there's 2 links right there. So please buy him a beer. Beer is expensive in Arkansas. I think I understand the taxes are pretty high there for alcohol. Is that right?
Mixed drinks more than beer, but yes, we have the highest mixed drink liquor rate in the nation. There's some random information you'll never need to know.
That's right. Yeah. So you got to pony up a little bit this evening to support Mr. Prater. And of course, there's a link if you want to support more shows at Pose Magic. Every little bit counts. Thank you so much. So here's the Q&A session. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or make a chat in the chat room. Ask a question in the chat room. Elizabeth Bernard says Elizabeth loved the performance. This was her first time seeing a bizarre mystery show. First class. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So raise your hand if you'd like to poke at Paul. I'm watching. I'm looking for hands raised. Anybody? Patrick, I'll pick you, but only if you don't mention Richard Webster again.
I will not mention the forbidden name. Well, I'm just going to geek out a little bit here, Paul, and say that I'd never seen you perform before or any clip of it. And it was just sort of, what am I going to do with my Saturday? I had several things I could have done. And it was like this